Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 2015-2016 Board of Aldermen budget deliberations. Today is April 1st, 2015, and today we are here for the public comment portion of the aldermanic budget process. Madam Secretary, will you please take the roll? Oh, yeah. Let's have the Pledge of Allegiance first. Please rise and let us salute our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Secretary, will you please take the roll?
Alderman Anderson?
Present.
Alderman Beer? I know he's here, right? Alderman Casey?
Here.
Alderman Fontana?
Madam Secretary, Alderman Fontana is excused.
Thank you. Alderman Gurman? Alderman Giannatasio? Here. Alderman Golden? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alderman Hardiman? Here. Alderman Kubek? Alderman Shaw? Here. Alderman Smith? Here. Alderman Stanford?
Here.
Alderman Vecchiarelli? Here. Alderman Vitro?
Here.
Alderman Vitale? Here.
We have a quorum. This is a budget meeting devoted to public comment. We will start with the education side of the budget first, and then move on to the city side of the budget. Please remember that the time granted to each speaker shall be 3 minutes. Residents, taxpayers, and electors may address the board at this time. The board encourages speakers not to express derogatory, insensitive, or offensive statements or to engage in personal attacks against individuals. In order to allow everyone a chance to speak, I'd ask that everyone please limit their comments to 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Tom Jagodzinski. I live at 27 Berkeley Terrace. As you know, your sole responsibility regarding the education budget is to determine a reasonable overall spending level for our schools. Milford spends more money per student than every other similar district in the state except for one. Adjusted for the number of students in the district, we spend over $22 million per year more on education than Shelton, a city which is approximately the same size and has a similar demographic and socioeconomic profile. Despite massive extra spending in Milford, Shelton students academically outperform Milford's in every grade and every area except third grade writing. What are we getting for our money? Academically, our schools are below average when compared to similar school districts in the state, and our high schools are significantly below average. Our high schools generally rank 22nd or 23rd out of 24, almost dead last. When the education budget is presented to you, you'll be told that academically our schools are improving. We're on the right track, and rainbows and unicorns are surrounding each school. There are, in fact, some positive signs. The advanced placement program in our high schools is a big success. There has been a significant improvement in the dropout rate. Unfortunately, there is no objective evidence that overall academic performance is improving. In fact, in the last year, there was a significant drop in the high school science scores. There are attempts to save money in the budget, but nowhere near what's needed to bring spending under control. Consultants hired by the board have identified $9 million in overspending. Despite these recommendations, the board didn't include any of these potential savings in the budget. Most people don't realize it, but overspending is just as damaging to academic performance as underspending. Milford is a classic example of an overspending, underperforming district. And what's going to happen if you cut the budget? Last year, you cut it by $300,000. Turns out, it was a non-event. The Board of Education easily accommodated the cuts without any impact on students. The board Ladies and gentlemen, you have the final say in how much money is being spent. You need to step up and put an end to the Board of Education's continual waste of taxpayer dollars. Thank you.
Christopher Thomas, 8 Argyle Road, Milford. Board of Aldermen, Mayor Blake. I would like to speak in favor of giving the Board of Education more money. This board came back to you last year, this superintendent, with a 0% increase. And you cut the district $300,000 at 9 o'clock at night on the last day when no one was in the room. And yes, this superintendent and this board adapted to it. They are to be lauded for that. It doesn't mean that that money could not have been used. We need science programs in the elementary schools. We need a science fair in the middle schools. We need to have science Olympiad teams. We need after-school programs. Not all of that should come from tax dollars, but we need to be pushing forward. I won't argue that perhaps some money needs to be spent differently. But then this year, this superintendent and this board, in a year when the parents in particular and the community overwhelmingly came and said restructure back to K-5, they did it. And they're still presenting the city with a minimal increase. You want to talk about comparing to other towns? Go find another town anywhere of any size in any ERG that came to you with a 2-year total increase of about $2.1 million. Under that, I think. You need to pay attention to what's going on. We are making progress. The AP scores, and I speak as a high school teacher, are incredibly encouraging. I don't teach in this district, and I'll tell you, I wish my district did in AP what this district's doing in AP. That's a bellwether sign. We can build momentum. I was a newspaper reporter before I was a teacher. I've been involved in education most of my life, either through reporting and teaching. And I tell you, I've never seen a superintendent and a board who try so hard to keep the costs down, who reallocate the money, who move it depending on what year they're going to buy technology, what year they're implementing talented and gifted programs. They're pulling students out. They're doing extra in math. They're pulling students out. They're doing extra in English. I go into my 5th graders' teacher meetings. They can tell me, based on the NWE scores and the DRA scores, they can tell me exactly how my daughters are doing. That needs to be lauded. You need to trust your superintendent and your board. They have spent the last 2 years dealing with the long-term plan, redistricting, and improving academics. What I would ask you to do, especially after last year, is listen to what they request, because they're not going to ask you for anything unreasonable, and I would give them what they requested. Thank you very much.
Hi. My name is Kara Flannery. I live at 41 North Street in Milford. Ladies and gentlemen of the Board of Aldermen, Mayor Blake, as you begin your evaluation process of our city budget, and more specifically, our education budget, I wanted to impress upon you all that this is an extremely critical year for our schools. After nearly 2 years of planning, this is the time when our district will begin building our vision from the bottom up. As we move forward with the expansion of our preschool program, transition our schools to K-5 elementary, and move forward with the redistricting that was more complicated than any of us would have imagined. Parents are looking towards the fall with a mix of hope and anxiety. Who will be at my school next year? Will the classrooms be ready? Will the teachers be ready? We cannot underestimate how important it is to our parents, teachers, and ultimately our kids that this transition is executed successfully. Whether or not we allow for the resources needed for this massive undertaking will make or break this vision we have been holding on to. In the last few months, we have seen funds for media aids cut, leaving 4 elementary schools with full-time media aids and 4 elementary schools with part-time media aids. This is not exactly the parity among schools parents had hoped for. Going back to a K-5 structure with the increase in testing and technology, media aids are desperately needed in a full-time capacity in all elementary schools. We've also seen funds for 2 additional school resource officers cut. Many parents feel that the public is unaware of just how much SROs do in our schools. They not only oversee safety issues in the building, but they get to know students and help prevent and resolve conflicts among them. This is a significant resource for our teachers and students as they navigate through the challenging years of adolescence. I am here to ask that this year, as we face huge transitions in our schools, that you fully fund the education budget as is. This reasonable budget, at a modest 2% increase, is helping us to create the schools that our families are asking for. While it may seem that students, teachers, and parents are the biggest stakeholders in your decision, I want to remind you that the quality of our schools play a significant role in determining property values and ultimately your tax revenue. Investments in education are critical for not only for our children to thrive, but for the economic stability of our community. One thing I know for sure is that parents in this town care deeply about education, and I want you to know that when it comes to issues affecting our schools, we are paying attention. We often cannot attend meetings, as you can see here, as you can imagine, parents are your busiest constituents. Attending meetings will always come second to caring for a sick kid, helping with school functions or team sports, or simply acting as a chauffeur to and from activities. And I want to tell you right now how important MGAT coverage is for helping parents stay informed of important issues. When I wondered why a recent redistricting workshop was not covered by MGAT, I learned that this department only has funding to film a portion of Board of Ed meetings and workshops. MGAT recordings are critical to helping parents stay informed, and I ask that funding be increased in the near future to allow for complete coverage of all Board of Ed meetings and workshops. I hope that when it comes to our education budget, you will leave politics aside and please consider what is best for our community. For on November 3rd this year, I, along with other parents, will have one question in mind when casting our vote. Who is the candidate that makes education a top priority? And who will support the vision we have for our schools? And we will remember the decisions that are made here in the weeks ahead. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. Auggie Harrigan, 107 Oronoque Road. Members of the Board of Aldermen, Mayor Blake. I think most of what's been said before me by Chris and Kara, I'm in complete agreement with, and I really just want to add, in this year of transition coming up with the redistricting plan, going through with parents who are somewhat shaken by the process and a need for us to re-centralize and think about getting back together, that we support the Board of Education's current budget, save any of those other discussions about any cuts till another time, and let's support them in their decision for the current budget as it's been proposed. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak in behalf of the Board of Education side of the budget? Seeing none, at this point we'll move on to the city side of the budget. Anyone wishing to speak on the city side of the budget, please come to the podium at this time.
Chris Thomas again, 8 Argyle Road. Was not planning on speaking on the city side of the budget, but seeing as there's no line, knowing I have a vested interest, being related to an employee at the library, I would just like to say, trying to sound dispassionate, that the new head librarian has done an amazing job down there, and if you haven't been down the library, the amount of programs, coordinations with the Milford Education Foundation and various other groups, it has become quite a community center. It was growing that way under Ms. Zhang, and it has grown that way even more forward under your new head librarian, your new library director. And so I would just, as you go through all the department budgets, I think you really, in case you don't know that, you really should know that the library has grown. I've seen it personally with my children, with my wife who works there, and it's quite a community center. So as they try to become a more 21st century library, I would ask that you give them a good listen when they come before you later this month.
Would anyone else like to speak on the city side of the budget? Seeing none, is there a motion to recess?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Recess to the next budget meeting, which is going to be Wednesday, April 22nd, 2015. You made a motion? Second?
Yeah. Is there a second? Second.
Motion has been made and second to recess for the next meeting, April 22nd. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We wish everyone a happy Easter and a good Passover, and we'll see you back here, actually Monday night, April 4th, April 6th, at 7:30. Thank you.
We start at 7.